Oh, let James in. Oh, James, we gotta let James in.
James.
Okay, there we
James, what's up? Oh, and
No, no.
someone's coming from the phone. Someone's coming in from the phone. All right, should all be in here. All right, who'd like to share your biggest challenge and your biggest victory from the first week? And keep it short and laser. And let's hear from somebody.
May I start?
Please do, Daniel. Yeah.
So earlier in the week, I definitely felt a little taken back, falling like astray because it was just really a lack of organization. And however, the biggest takeaway was I finally launched my blog today, and I got that together. And the name of that is Develop with Daniel, and that was the biggest leap forward that I could probably have taken. That made some progress.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Imperfect action, man. It's awesome. That's a lot of what tonight's about. So thanks for sharing, Daniel. Appreciate you. Daniel, I have a curiosity about you. Just a quick question. We'll allow like one redirect question per person, but we'll get through it quick. Daniel, tell me about your home life there, if you don't mind. Like what's your daily flow like?
So usually I'll wake up, and before the program, like I would wake up, I'd either like break out the foam roller, or I would maybe do some stretches and then I would maybe read or just kind of like hop on the computer and either that or be heading into work. And then from there it would either be like go walk with Brewski or kind of go to the gym and then like either cook for my mom and I, and what else? And then really just kind of schooling myself over the computer, and what else? And just
Okay.
kind of doing like some intermittent practices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, man. Thank you. All right, let's get one more person from your week one biggest challenge, biggest victory. Who else wants to? Oh, this is so cool. So many people, so many little faces. Sylvia, you were like flipping your hair around. You were doing some crazy stuff.
No, I've been going nonstop. So I just like came in, took a bite of something. I'm like, I got to get on this call. Yeah, I am. Biggest challenge is honestly is just like I'm in the middle of a launch and just getting into the hang of just getting on that Vimify app and into the new flow of that, because I've already kind of got my own little routine going. So I felt a little bit disconnected, not going in and completing the Vimify. So I noticed my athlete in me making myself wrong for like not winning and like doing the thing. And I think the biggest win is like just acknowledging that in myself and just being okay with it. This is where I'm at right now. And just being kind to me, despite, yeah. So that's actually really huge for me. So, yeah, that was good. It was kind of good that it happened. So I got to practice that.
Yeah. Awesome. That like so perfect, because the gate we're going to go into tonight has a lot to do with being kind to yourself. So it's going to be, yeah. So thanks for sharing that. And I hope you get in the Vimify and fall in love with it at some point.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. So thank you. Yeah. And I'm excited for the new structure. So it'll be cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. One more. Anybody else feel called to share? Biggest victory, biggest challenge from week one? Quick, one more share. Okay, Julia, unmute. Oh, I love when people raise their hands. It's not letting me unmute you, Julia. Oh, there you go.
I think we were trying to do it at the exact same time.
Okay.
Yes, I've raised my hand. Woo woo. Gosh, so like my biggest challenge was being in JVology for the last call, and like, oh shit, I missed that. And so like getting in a rhythm, that would have been my challenge. A couple little things with Vimify, but for the most part, I think I'm somewhat rocking on that. I need to get in there and just finalized a couple things. And so that would be my win, is like getting in there and getting the few things that I've seen already, and then not allowing that competitive side of me to like, oh, look at James, she's like up 64, 65 points, and I'm like down at 12. So just kind of staying in my like chill out mode a little bit. It's gonna be the good motion.
Okay, I love it. I love it, Julia. And, you know, it's one thing to cover, too. I believe in Vimify, one of the things you can do is, because tomorrow, Friday, is like a catch-up day. If you missed like 3 morning meditations, you just have to do a 5-minute meditation, click yes, do another 5-minute meditation, click yes. You can't just check them off, though. You have to go back and supplement and actually do them. It's honor system, you guys. And
well, yeah. And just like, I opened up my schedule to make this happen tonight, because I would have been late or not been on it at all. And I was like, nope, I need to look at those Thursdays and just make it work.
We appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, oh my goodness, thank you guys so much for showing up tonight. And like, obviously you're going to get more value when you show up live. And I always understand when you can't. But I just want to say, like, the group energy, there's a lot of different belief systems in this group, but let's just say this. There is something called a morphogenic field, and it's the field of all of our combined consciousness and our energy together. And so when the part of the group is low, the part of the group that's high will lift that part up, and without even talking about it or knowing about it. And when part of the group is high, you know, it'll lift up the low people. So, and Sylvia, you have a question. My little chat box is lighting up. You can do your own meditation and just check off on Vimify. Please, for the love of God, don't be forced to listen to my voice unless you like it. Do your own meditation, and we're going to be recording meditations as we go. And so, yeah, please.
We love you, Kai. Don't get it twisted.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just saying, I had a teacher for 10 years, some of you know, and I had to listen to an entire iPod full of my mentor day in and day out, lectures, Qigong classes, and I love him, and I never wanted to hear his voice again after that 10 years of training. So, all right. So great question. All right, we're going to jump in. I'm really excited about tonight. One of the things that happens for me, because I've taught this material for 5 or 6 years, though, is that every time there's a new group, and in my own life there's breakthroughs, I sit with this, and a couple hours of my day today was just redoing the keynote presentation to incorporate new learnings, as well as feeling into what the group is asking for. So you guys will continue to give us feedback on how that lands, and at the end of the program tonight, we'll open it up. I don't think Commander Fairman is here, so we don't have our Vimify expert. But if there are Vimify issues, contact Harmony. And if we need to, we'll do a Facebook Live, or we'll bring Alex on for some kind of tutelage. Are we ready to go? All right, Cole's going to jump off and then back on 15 minutes. All right, Cole, we will miss you, but you'll be right back. All right, here we go. Share. One more thing, Harmony, please watch the chat, because when I'm in keynote mode, I'm not able to see the chat box. So here we go. Share screen.
Real quick, Kai, did Cole just set that on the chat? Because I don't see it.
No, I just outed him. It was a private message. Cole, I'm sorry.
Okay, cool.
I didn't see the private message. At least I didn't say the last thing you told me, Cole. I say he's still secret. All right. All right, we are recording. We are full screen. Okay, sweet. All right, your faces can go down. I asked that during the presentation, if you can just turn off your video for the sake of bandwidth, and then you can still chat with each other, but please go off video and mute yourself. I appreciate that. And I will hide my video panel. Okay, cool. Here we go. So just tune in for a moment. Flow Mastery, the Shadow Gate. Just tune in to yourself. Allow yourself to arrive in this moment. Notice the internal dialogue in your mind that inner voice often carries the words of your shadow and sometimes hides from you the truth of who you actually are. And tune into your heart, any emotions that are present for you. For no matter how smart we are, the emotions in our heart are in a large part responsible for the quality of our life, our motivation, compassion. And those emotions, in a large part, become a cascade of neurotransmitters and chemicals that determine how our body expresses itself. And we drop down into our gut, a couple inches below your navel in the center of the body, and notice how your body's doing. It's 6 p.m., it's 9 p.m. at night. How is your energy holding up? How is your low back and adrenals? Just listen to that deep intelligence in the body. I'm very excited to share the Shadow Gate because I really believe that your life depends on it. Your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, and even the health of your body will all be impacted by the information contained in the Shadow Gate. For some of you, you've been working on it for a long time, and for some of you, it's new. And I'll just share that I believe it never ends. The work of shining our light into that which we previously did not know that we did not know about ourselves and about the world. It is a lifelong process. And yet the intention here is to give you a tool and an understanding that will last you for the rest of your life. Now, we're on this journey to the mastery of power within ourselves. And it may be worth saying that the type of power we're talking about is the power to create our own worlds from the inside out. It's not about controlling other people, yet it is about creating our own reality. And it may be about the impact we have out in the world. And so the first gate is literally the gate of shadow work, because when the shadow is not in check, when we don't have awareness of our limiting beliefs, then that's when life can get out of control. It's also where things can happen to us externally when we're not able to see them coming. And we'll talk more about that later. The other gates that we'll get to we know we're going to go into noble movement. We're going to work our adaptogens and theogens and nootropics. We're going to work with breath work. We're going to work with meditation and mindfulness. We're going to work with heart intelligence and flow states and sexual hygiene, sexual alchemy. But it all starts with shadow work. And so we take a moment to honor the immortal words of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, who said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." And this is the spirit of the Asian martial arts, sometimes called Kung Fu or Gong Fu. It's an idea that the repetition and mastery of a simple skill can lead to some type of merit or magic or power. We know in the modern vernacular that 10,000 hours is considered the minimum for mastery or being an expert. And I just want to share with you guys tonight that it's the repetition of the practices in the pathway of power that will help you start to discover the answers from within yourself. So just notice the desire or the habit when you may ask, when you're saying, where are the answers coming from? I need more information. I need more practices. I need another seminar. I need another coach. When actually maybe it's you need tools to lead you into the wisdom that's within yourself. And I ask you again and again to trust the process. Trust the way the program is laid out. Trust the meditations and adapt as you need, checking in with us. So with that said, some of you have what's called a metal personality type. Some people out there want to know what's coming, what's happening. So we, by request, made an overview that we'll share in the Facebook group, and we'll get it out to you guys as well as a PDF. So we're not even done with week 1, the baseline and success mapping, where we get used to the Vimify app, we establish a basic meditation routine, and we get so much data about where we're at, what we're up against. Like, look back at your week. Did you crush every activity and we're looking for more? Or did you, even though it was only a small commitment each day, did you miss out on things? This is your moment to reevaluate and set yourself up for next week, practicing the fundamental skill of course correction. This week, tonight, is the Shadow Gate, to discover our dark and golden shadow and to give you guys the tools to work with it. Next, the week after will be the Meditation Gate. We'll start to use our biofeedback equipment, and we'll begin to master the art of course correction meditation. Week 4, we'll bring in our adaptogens and theogens and nootropics, how to use the food we're eating and how it's affecting us, to understand the power of adaptogens, and then nootropics to solve our wicked problems. Week 5, the MBA and the breath gate. We're going to master our breath. We're going to learn about different breathing techniques and what each of them does to our physiology, our emotions, and our mind. And you'll have an ample opportunity to practice each of those techniques throughout the week so you can develop your own alchemy of breath work. Week 6, now that we're breathing, we're tonicked up, our meditation is deeper, we're going to challenge our bodies in new ways with Tabatas, with Qigong. And we're going to learn how to infuse the why into our exercise and use breath work to create internal heat to burn out impurities. Week 7, we're starting to put it all together. Likely many of you will already have been experimenting, but we're going to go over the fundamental principles from neuroscience and alchemical traditions of the morning ritual and the power of stacking the practices together, how putting these practices together will lead to exponential results depending on your body, your mind, your emotions. Week 8, we'll dive into adaptogens and theogens again for evening, for sleep, and talk about the reality of body debt and how we can set ourselves up to have adrenal surplus for our entire lives. Week 9, sexual alchemy. We'll be splitting into a men's group and a women's group, and we'll dive into the mastery and the management of our sexual energy, which likely for many of you will be experiencing new levels of surges and arousing of that root chakra adrenal energy as it fills up. Week 10, heart intelligence, abundance, and receivership. I'm going to give you guys some powerful tools for creating more abundance in your life by learning how to reprogram the subconscious mind to receive. And we're going to be integrating our heart rate variability, inner balance technology to track when we're in an authentic, positive emotional state. The body doesn't lie. And this biofeedback gives us the opportunity to actually know when our visualization and our meditation and the writing we're doing is in a heart-brain alignment or not. Week 11, bonus session, conscious communication, nonviolent communication, the power of our language. If there's any remaining shadow material, if any of our fears or doubts are coming up, we're going to find that in our languaging. And we're going to use that last week to equip you guys to go out into the world and really communicate powerfully as you renegotiate your world. And finally, week 12 will be the presentation of your service projects. And it's often found that the highest level of mastery is being able to teach others. And I've seen it where the entire course's value is revealed in week 12. So, asking you to trust in the one thing. Well, maybe two things. So what are the two things? The two things are, the one thing I'm asking you to trust in is the course, the meditations, and your devotion to that regimen. And the second thing is to trust that that will move the needle towards your bigger dreams and visions. So, a couple things about this. This comes from a book called The One Thing. And it's a book that exposes the myth of multitasking, where when we multitask, we're actually 28% less effective than when we're actually focused on something. Number two, our brain actually begins to deteriorate. The more we multitask, the worse our brain becomes. Multitasking also leads to a lack or a diminishment of happiness because we're never fully present in the moment. And the research is so clear that even when we're focused on negative present moment circumstances, we're happier than when we're escaping into the future or the past. And finally, willpower is a diminishing resource in our minds. And when we multitask, we burn through willpower super fast. And that means that one of the experiments they did was they asked a group of people to memorize a 7-digit phone number. And the second group of people didn't have to memorize it. And when they went out and they were all on diets, when they were given the choice between a healthy snack or a non-healthy snack, the ones who had to memorize the phone number were much more statistically likely to pick the unhealthy snack because part of their brain was fatigued from the memorization of the phone number. We are interesting beings. So I just want to share at the last part is this domino analogy where they discovered that a small domino could knock over a bigger domino, which could then knock over a bigger domino, and it would multiply as the dominoes were toppled. And that small domino is your adherence to your tasks. It's your participation in the group. It's showing up for the call. It's doing your meditations. And that will lead to the next domino. And that's how this Power Mastery is set up. So that by the end of it, that last big domino is your life, your dreams, your practice, your relationships, whatever it is that you're focusing on. All right, so let's dive into the shadow. Now, Pathway of Power is based in the alchemical traditions of ancient China. It's the same traditions that Chinese medicine come from. And one of the things that happens in a culture is that we carry out the beliefs of our religions and our cultural norms. And if the religious teaching is that the nature of the self is inherently flawed, then that is going to be a subconscious principle that is existing within us for our entire life. And it may take a lot of work to undo that. In the Taoist view, the original self is perfect. The child is innocent. It loves everyone. It has no disregard for its own feces and urine. The child will laugh and it will cry. It will love. It will forgive almost instantly. And then we get layer and layer of acquired experience. And we put a shell over shell on top of us. And so this is the moment that I invite you to think about the layers of acquired gunk that have covered up your true nature. Your enthusiasm, your vulnerability, your confidence. What did your teachers tell you? What did the church tell you? What did your parents tell you? This essentially ends up being your armor. These layers of gunk become our armor. Sometimes we use perfectionism to hide out from taking imperfect action. Sometimes we numb ourselves out so we don't have to feel the pain of those imperfections. Sometimes we gossip and we turn our inner shadow out onto the world. And sometimes we pollute even our own joy. How many times have you ever experienced yourself or someone you cared about, the moment something beautiful happened to them, they already starting to rehearse in their minds when it's all going to come toppling down, when they're going to lose that partner, when they're going to lose that job. They don't even take a moment to enjoy it. That's the shadow at work. And these are some examples of the armor that we all have our own versions of. Think about your armor now. Which of these have you used? which of these do you wear from time to time? What is the shadow? So on a basic level, the shadow comes from a psychological perspective from the time that we're 0 to 7 years old. That's a time that we have no critical factor, no ability to evaluate the truth or the appropriateness of what's being said or done to us. Somebody wants to come in. Let's see if I can. Someone's unmuted, and that's you, Michelle.
Oh.
Thank you.
You were able to hear me?
I can hear you, Michelle. All right, and then Harmony, there's some people that want to be admitted too. There's an iPhone that came in, so just make sure you admit people as you keep an eye on that, please. Okay, so what is the shadow? It comes in from 0 to 7, and basically as we grow up, we are taught by our parents and by school and by our peer group that there are certain aspects of ourselves that are unlovable. And so we push those parts of ourselves down into the darkness of our unconscious. And it's a coping mechanism to remain loved and survive. Because think about this. When you're a child and your nourishment in the form of touch, in the term of positive affirmation, in terms of love, when that it comes from your parents, they are essentially gods to you. And to be unloved, your little 0 to 7-year-old subconscious mind, that's equated with dying. And so we will prostitute ourselves, we will hide ourselves, we will do anything we can to keep that love. And this is where the vast majority of psychologists make their money. To be honest, it's where coaches are making most of their money. And as we become adults, it's what we don't know that we don't know. And so why is this important? It becomes the primary source of blocked energy in our life. We're always shadow boxing with it, either trying to push it down and hide it from other people, or it's actually sabotaging us by creating inconvenient situations, slips of the tongue, damaging our relationships. If we can seal the leaks, our creative power will be freed up and our energetic bank account will begin to overflow. We can discover the root of our self-sabotage. Any area of your life where you have a persistent complaint, that is a highly likely area that the shadow is at work. We reintegrate the shadow for deeper self-love and clarity of heart. And in most cases, it's the highest leverage point for total well-being. There's even material and information out there today about how our shadow and our subconscious mind is actually underneath the major forms of disease that are facing our culture today. So if you want to just drop in the chat box, what is your main way of armoring, and what's your main way of dealing with your shadow material? If you know what it is, go ahead and drop it in the chat box. What is your main way of dealing with your insecurity, your fear, your discomfort? Could be some of us hide out, some of us overachieve. There's so many ways to deal with it. So the goal tonight is to give you the most practical tools to deal with this so that you can use it for the rest of your life. How do we recognize the shadow? Well, one way is to notice where you have excessive emotion or overreaction. So it can make you negatively hypersensitive. And at the end of the transmission tonight, we're gonna give you a tool that's gonna really give you some powerful access to this. You're easily triggered, reactive, irritated, angry, hurt, or upset. Or it may keep coming up as an emotional tone or a mood that pervades your life. Some of the work of Joe Dispenza, he talks about how one negative experience, which a person then continues to remember each day, and it eventually becomes their mood, and their mood eventually becomes their temperament, and their temperament becomes their character, and their character becomes the destiny of their life. And literally, from one traumatic event can define someone's life. I'll share the story of two young men who were brothers, twins, and they had an alcoholic, abusive father. And many years later, they were being interviewed. One had been in and out of jail, was extremely depressed, was himself addicted to substances. The other had become a substance abuse counselor, written a best-selling book about a new approach to substance abuse, happily married. And in the interview, they were interviewed separately. They were asked the question of, why and how did you become who you are today? And they both had the same answer. They said it was because of my father. And so they each had choice in how they became. And I want just to consider that whatever challenges and traumas and difficulties you faced in your life, they're an opportunity to become the best version of yourself. And they're also a potential threat to overwhelming you or keeping you small or diminishing your life force. Now, the other side of the shadow is when you become positively hypersensitive, easily infatuated, possessive, obsessed, or if it becomes an ongoing idealization that structures your motivations or mood. This is a part of the golden shadow in breakdown. When you believe that you can never become as good as the mentors that you love, or you don't receive the joy and the positive feedback that comes to you. That's equally a problem in the shadow. So we also have shared shadows as cultures. Asian cultures have a different shadow than Western cultures. Europe has a different shadow than America. It's really interesting if you come from a certain cultural background to notice the shadow of your country. Notice the shadow of those cultures because they're a shared energetic field of beliefs. However, for most of us, the shadows around unworthiness, like some of you shared, we overwork for love and appearance of success, when on the inside we might be suffering. We have a fear of being vulnerable, a fear of asking for help. We spiritual bypass. We stay up in our positive emotions because we're afraid to get into the messy unworthiness, sadness, depression that underlies all of our positive structures over top of us. Or we overcompensate. Classic story of the 6-year-old who was told they were stupid, only to find 30 years later and a couple master's degrees that they still didn't feel smart enough because they never cleared that shadow. So ways to reveal our shadow. We're going to look at the patterns of emotional triggers in our daily life. And that's something that your meditations can help you with. When you meditate, you may want to review your day for any times that you were triggered emotionally. Notice slips of the tongue, sometimes called Freudian slips, and behaviors. Where is it in your life that you seem to have accidents? Notice unconscious habits and solicit feedback from how you are perceived by others. Later this week, you will receive some exercises to do via the Vimify app that will allow you to solicit feedback from others. Those two exercises are called the Trusted Ask and the Gifts Letter. That's where you reach out in a skillful manner to the people in your group. And even if you've already done this, I suggest you try it again. And you ask a group of people that you trust for feedback about what you may not know that you may not know about yourself. What have they wanted to tell you that they were afraid to tell you? Give the people in your life who've earned the trust permission to speak frankly with you, and you will get immediate, free, powerful access to your shadow. Also, people whose lives you know you've enhanced or touched, people who you know see you in a high light, especially those people that maybe have said nice things about you, but there's part of you that didn't believe them, you didn't let it in. You're going to solicit them to share an email with you about what they see as your greatest gifts. And again, even if you've done this before, do it again. The power in this cannot be understated. Look at who you judge most or project your negative emotions toward and get curious as to why. Who rubs you the wrong way? What are the qualities in other people that annoy or irk you? And then finally, you're going to do a free write about your childhood. What were the emotions in your familial upbringing that were acceptable and what was unacceptable? What were some of the traumatic experiences in your family life, in your early childhood? And hear this powerful question. What did you decide about yourself or the world in those moments? What did you decide about yourself or the world in those moments? That will give you, if you do these things, you'll have major access to your shadow. So the shadow in action. What emotion do you think this polar bear is experiencing? If you were to guess, just put it in the chat. What emotion is this polar bear experiencing? Because I believe that in the last 5 years, that the level of our access to shadow work has been absolutely exponentially multiplied. And the next part of this presentation, we're going to break down a new approach to shadow work. Well, I saw some different guesses. It's possible that the biggest form of shadow in our modern culture is shame. Shame. And before you decide whether you have shame or not, ask yourself the question, do you experience shame? I know that for me, before I discovered the work of Brené Brown, in my opinion, one of the most powerful teachers of our modern time, a sage, hidden in the clothes of a scientist and a mother, that I believe that she has cracked a code to one of the biggest epidemics in our culture. And so shame is a big part of the modern shadow. And yet some people, shame is so good at tricking us into feeling that we don't even think that we're feeling shame. So let's look at it. One definition of shame is the pain of feeling flawed and therefore unworthy of love. So ask yourself that question. Where in your life have you let the feeling of being flawed or unworthy of love stop you from asking for what you deserved, stopped you from sharing your intimate truth with someone you loved or cared about? Where does it haunt you at night or in your confidence in your work? Some other names for shame, some synonyms to maybe help you get access to where this may be interfacing with you: disgrace, guilt, shame, playing small, hiding out. All of these things can be shame. And there's one thing that we know from psychology about shame. When you are feeling shame in your life, you feel trapped, powerless, and isolated. This is another one of those Trinity triangles that each one feeds the other. So you feel that you're not worthy to talk to anyone about it, so you're alone. And as you deal with it alone, you feel trapped inside that circle of negative thoughts, leading to negative emotions, leading to a tired and sad body, and they all run back into each other. And so in this moment, ask yourself this: where in your life are you trapped in the shame triangle? And maybe more importantly, consider that this transformational group, this program, the Facebook group, the Vimify group, this is your opportunity to step outside of the shame triangle. This is an invitation. It's a group of people who are aware of this information and therefore can operate outside of it. Now, we're not going to leave us with the shame triangle because we now get a second version of the power triangle, which is designed to counteract the trap of shame. And that's empathy, connection, and freedom, which lead to power. And this is the antidote. This is the antidote. Empathy, which we'll look at a little bit later, has some specific qualities. And I know that there are people in this group that could probably do an entire presentation on empathy. But when we have empathy, we create greater degrees of connection with people. And then that connection leads to greater freedom, and that freedom leads to a greater ability to have empathy. So there are these deleterious triangles in life, these self-fulfilling prophecies, where one negative thing leads to another, and they just suck us down the downward spiral. And yet we also have the positive triangles, where one thing empowers another, which empowers another, which empowers another. And this is the positive triangle. This is the goal of power mastery, is to set all of us up in the power triangles of life so that we become insulated, protected from the way that life tends to bring us down. So the capacity to get out of shame is called shame resilience. Shame resilience. So how do we do it? How do you do it? Well, the first thing is to know the triggers. What are the triggers that send you into feeling shame, that take away your self-esteem, that take away your ability to communicate vulnerably? Now, there are some common ones to look at. So a lot of them have to do with body image, sexuality. A lot of the triggers of shame are around our family when we first experienced it. Have you ever had that experience where you were shamed by a big brother or sister or mother or father, and even though you're an adult and you're successful, when you go back home to your family of origin, you feel like a 7-year-old child again? Okay, hold on a second. We're going to pause the transmission for just a second. All right. All right. We're going to let a few people in. They might have been hanging out outside. And then if that happens again, Harmony, just let me know and we'll take care of that for next week. Okay, so the first assignment is to really get to know your shame triggers. Sometimes it's around our voice in public speaking. Sometimes our shame triggers come from trauma. Sometimes it comes from our professional status, whether that's higher or lower. It can come from our religion. So know your shame triggers. Once you are able to identify them rationally, you're much more likely to recognize them when they come up in the moment and you're emotional. And when you're emotional, you also want to recognize the personal vulnerability that led to the shame. So if that was around your weight or your body image, if it was around a place where you let someone down and it tapped into a similar dynamic to your family of origin, if you are aware of them, you're much more likely to recognize them. All right, step 2, reality check. Reality check. This is where you're so cognizant that you begin to have a new conversation with yourself. So for example, think of the way you talk to someone you love. Think of the way you talk to a child, or even the way you regard a pet that you love, or one of your best friends. And you may notice that your self-talk towards yourself is cruel and unusual compared to the way you regard other people, especially the people you love the most. I ask you to consider, who in your life do you have the most patience and tolerance for? Who is it that you almost can't get mad at because you love them so much? And if you can take that same mindset and heart set and apply it to yourself in the moment of your shame, talk to yourself like you would a child. And bring yourself back to reality. Lastly, share your story with your power partner or with someone in your life who's proven to be worthy of sharing your most vulnerable thoughts with. Not everyone is worthy. Now, Brené Brown recommends that everyone only have 2 or 3 people in their life, that's all you need is 2 or 3 people to feel like you're worthy of sharing your shame with you. Now, the cool part is this doesn't have to take long. And this training on shame resilience is also training for your power partner, and it's training for your power cell, as well as for your life and your family everywhere else. So when we're working with people and holding space, how do we utilize the power of empathy? Well, the first piece is you have to become very mindful of your physiology. You might use a breathing technique if you know one to become fully present. And the first piece is once you've cleared your state, you want to adopt their perspective. It's the classic cliche of putting yourself in their shoes, putting yourself in their physiology, putting yourself in their family experience. It's not about you, it's about them. And if you can just be curious about their perspective, then you will avoid number 2, which is judging and wanting to fix them and wanting to coach them. The beauty of power partners, if you're out there and you're thinking, oh, some people in this program are coaches, some people in this program are psychologists. I'm not that. I can't be a good power partner. Maybe you've had that thought. That's bullshit. All you have to do is become present in your body, to become really curious about how do they think? Where are they coming from? What are they feeling? And then to be present and just listen without judgment or without trying to fix or solve their problem. And then as you're listening, search yourself for similar emotions. Search yourself for similar life experiences and just consider the possibility that maybe they're feeling something like this or something like that. Try to find some relatable experience. It doesn't mean you're going to go back to the memory in yourself. It doesn't mean you're going to have a flashback, but just see if there's a resonance inside of you. And then finally, when they're done sharing, you're going to reflect back to them and recognize where the vulnerability was, where, if anything, there's responsibility or possibility for them to clean up, and to recognize how irrational and how destructive that shame is in their life. And you just reflect that back with them. Now, that whole process can take 5 to 9 minutes when you guys get good at it. And the value is exponential. So one of the other assignments for this week is going to be to meet with your power partner and practice this type of empathic listening. And there will be more tools to support you. We also have people in our tribe that are experts at this, and they may drop in on the Facebook group and share some tools as well. Just know you are equipped to do this. Be present, suspend your judgment, and be curious. Feel into yourself for similar emotions and experiences, and then reflect back, recognize, and ask questions, allowing them to deconstruct the shame experience in themselves. When you do this just a few times, your whole life can change. So, Brené Brown, in her research on shame, identified a type of person that she called wholehearted. So here she is, this shame researcher, researching, surveying, studying. And she keeps finding these anomalies, these people that don't fit in the bell curve because they don't experience negative emotions and shame in the same way that other people do. Now, she ended up calling these people wholehearted people. And so these are 10 guideposts adapted from that allow us to transcend our shadow. 1, practice authenticity. Can you find a time or a moment with someone in your life to reveal something vulnerable to them? I remember one time I went to a tantric workshop with this practitioner, and maybe you have had an experience like this, maybe not. And we sat in a circle, and he said, if you want to be a great tantric practitioner, it's very difficult and also very easy. And he said, we'll start tonight. So each person is going to share the most vulnerable thing they're willing to share with the group. And really what he was teaching us was shame resilience. He was teaching us the ability to move into a group setting or into a one-to-one setting and not be afraid to share our authenticity, to share our vulnerability. I want to go back to this power of empathy, because what I've experienced is that when we share shame with the correct person, when we share our vulnerability or our fear with the correct person, some of you had an experience of this during the mountain initiation. The shame actually is released like a bubble, and it reveals underneath it deeper connection and usually some type of effervescence or joy. So just remember that it's possible, and it's likely actually, that when you are able to share shame and you're able to transmute it, that underneath it is actually more energy, more connection, and positive emotion. So that's practicing authenticity. Number 2, develop self-compassion. That's the ability to tap, to put your hand on your heart, and to talk to yourself as if you were a friend that you loved deeply. Mirror work, looking in the mirror and seeing yourself as your inner child, very powerful. Talking to him or her, saying, hey, little man, hey, little girl, hey, skinny little thing, I got you. I love you. You're taken care of. I know you spilled the milk again. It's okay. I love you anyway. That's really the whole technology of tapping. Emotional freedom technique. Tap on the body. Acknowledge the shame, the guilt, the fear, and then say, even though I feel these feelings of emotion, of shame, of guilt, of fear, I still deeply and completely love and approve of myself. The magic of EFT is self-compassion. The power practices give you the ability to see through to the essence of all these different healing modalities. Cultivate resilience. So obviously, every time you catch yourself in shame, and you're able to share with somebody, and you're able to work through it just a couple of minutes, you get more resilient. Every time you get triggered and you do a meditation and breath work, instead of reacting, you cultivate resilience. Every time you write in your journal, you cultivate resilience. So activating and utilizing the practices in the moments that you get triggered is the biggest way to cultivate your resilience. Build gratitude, joy, and sufficiency. And this is really the foundation of resilience. It's about finding happiness even in the simple things in life. Your dog, your organic food, how good it feels to move your body. When we can feel joy by ourselves without depending on anyone else, it makes it much harder for shame to reach in and take over our lives. We become more self-sufficient because we're sourcing our own gratitude and joy. That's what the morning ritual is going to give us the ability to do. And interestingly enough, if you remember, one way of armoring ourselves is to, when we have something good happen, we're already rehearsing in our mind losing it or having it taken away from ourselves. That's the armor that shame creates in us. And the way that wholehearted people deal with something joyful is that they actually feel gratitude for it. Now, a little piece of NLP or neuro-linguistic programming for you is that most people, when something bad happens, they code it in their mind as a very bright, colorful memory. and they have it as a large image in the way that they've coded it. And they play it over and over with a soundtrack of sad or depressing or scary music. And so, of course, how can someone get out of that negative experience when they've created a mind movie in Technicolor in surround sound? And interestingly enough, most of us, when something good happens, we make it small. We make it black and white. We attach excuses and justifications onto it. And this will keep us in a life that's very difficult. And it's as easy as in this moment, making the choice to take count every day of the things you're grateful for, of your small victories, of your big victories, of experiencing them in the grandest color you can, in the most rich sound with all the positive emotions, and to play that over and over like a highlight reel of your life. And in that way, you can slowly but surely start to build up your sufficiency. I'd love for you guys to share in the chat right now, how is this landing for you? We'll get a chance to share at the end, but just curious, like, how's it landing? And okay, good. Love it. Okay. I just, and just to take it into the deepest level possible, to just burn these in your mind like tattoos on your brain so that you can take advantage of them, so that this isn't just another course you took. So, all right. Another one is to trust intuition and build faith. So meditation is one of the best ways to trust intuition. And one of the places that some of you have already been, maybe some of you are already at, and I believe that all of you will get to by the end of this program, is during your meditations, you will experience 3 distinct qualities of mind. One will be the moments that you're totally present with your breath and your physical sensations in the present moment. And that has phenomenal value. Another will be moments where you're aware of your monkey mind, of its constant barrage of criticism, of anxiety, of worry, of judgment, or its neutral filling of that space with just jabber, has no value inherently positive or negative. That's the second state, awareness of the monkey mind. And the third, and the one that I love the most, is occasionally you'll begin to get a stream of thoughts that you can tell are not your own. They're more brilliant. They're more well-formed. They're more appropriate. They're answers to all your prayers. And it's that time when you're tapped into the inner genius within yourself, and you come out of your meditation and you can't write fast enough. And that's my wish for all of you, is that every time you meditate, as you become more skillful with the muse, with the HRV, with your own self, that in a 15-minute meditation, 5 minutes will be a break from all thinking and doing, the emptiness, the eternal mind. 5 minutes will be awareness of the shadow, awareness of your anxiety, awareness of things in your life you might need to take care of. And then 5 minutes will be divine download, connection to higher self, the function of our cold logic that's been gathering data and waiting to present you these divine answers, but you've been too busy worrying or busy to actually hear them. And so we can build intuition through meditating and acting on it. And faith, I have a question for you guys. How do you build faith? How is it that you build faith? And while you guys share in the chat, I'll just share that I believe one of the ways to build faith is to act on your intuition. And it doesn't work every time, but eventually you start to get into the ability to act on those inspired thoughts and watch miraculous things happen. However, another way to build faith, a way that I think a lot of us need, because we all grew up with imperfect parents, imperfect religious traditions, is to find literature whether it's research, whether it's spiritual stories, whether it's religious. Find stories and books that build your faith, that renew your trust in God and in the universe. Read the authors who are living the truths that you want to be true for you. Spend time around people who have the businesses and the lives and the relationships that you want. Because when you're around those people, your subconscious mind cannot ignore that reality. That is the power of proximity. Their heart field influences you. Their brain waves influence you. And you can take it all in and begin to emulate it. And pursue meaningful work. You know, when you do work that has value to other people, when you do work that you love, it's easier to be vulnerable. Now, here's a quote that I'm not going to quote, I'll just paraphrase. It came from a person in history, and it's the one that got Brene Brown started. I'll put it in the Facebook group this week. But she basically said that all great people must ignore the voices of their detractors. For most of the detractors and the criticizers are nowhere in the game. They're in the bleachers. They're on the sidelines. Those are the people who love to gossip from the safety of their keyboards, from behind their computer screens, and listen only to the other people whose hands are dirty, whose face is bloodied, whose pants are muddy, because they're out there with you making a difference in the world. They're in the same field. They're risking their asses. They're falling down and getting back up. Those are the people that you can trust. Those are the people that you can listen to. So I believe you are surrounded by a group right now of people that are out there doing the work. They're out in the field and they're playing full out. And so we can trust each other. We can trust each other's feedback. But ignore the detractors, because they love nothing more than for you to give up and hide out just like they are. And so as you pursue your meaningful work, one of the ways you know your work is meaningful is that you're willing to be embarrassed for that work. You're willing to fall on your ass and realize that there's no failure, there's only feedback, because you're moving toward your goal. So, and the last piece, which relates to this one, is to deep play. Find time to go on magical journeys in nature. Spend time with your friends doing things that have no purpose other than joy. Find a sexual connection with yourself for self-pleasure. Exercise in a way that's fun and that you can enjoy the bliss of your body. For the research is so clear. When we deeply play, we are deeply rejuvenated. When we deeply play, we are reconnected to the joy and the bliss of life. And so I invite you to schedule this deep play. Now, don't feel like you have to take on every one of these. Yet, at the same time, I would ask you to find a practical way that you can do each one of these at some point in the program. You don't have to do each one each week. But I want to give you the maximum amount of information that's applicable right now. And I do believe it's feasible that you could do these each week. And we'll see if we can figure that out together. So lastly, this is my new tool for the Golden Shadow. And it is such a powerful process. We will generate a worksheet for you guys, but there's no need to wait for that. So this is like the Golden Shadow worksheet. What are you going to do with that dark shadow, those people that annoy you, the things about your lover or your partner that piss you off? What are you going to do with the things in the world, like about politicians or government, that bother you? Well, here it is. Let's do this. Let's do this. First of all, write down on the top of your paper the name of the person that you're having an issue with, that's annoying you, that you feel triggered by. And then on the far left of the paper, you're going to need 4 columns. In the far left of your paper, write what annoys you about them in a vertical row. So go down. What annoys you? Is it their voice? Is it that they're late all the time? Is it that they spend money in a certain way, whatever it is, just write it down. Go, what are the qualities in that person that annoy or bother or trigger you? In your next column to the right, you're going to flip it. What would be the positive attribute of that person's weakness? What's the positive state that you can turn it into? Now, this could also be an exercise you do in your power cell group or with your power partner. Column 3. Be it. What tangible actions can you take to become more of that positive attribute in column 2 in your own life? Find actions and behaviors in a way that you can change yourself to be more of those positive qualities you identified in column 2. And then column 4, notice the change in yourself. Notice the change in whether or not that still annoys you about them. And notice the change even in them as the quantum difference affects reality in the present moment. So an example for column 2. Let's say what annoyed you about the person is that they were stingy. They were very stingy or selfish. And so you would flip that into generosity. So then you would flip it into generosity. And then you would also maybe even notice, where in your life are you stingy? Maybe you're not stingy in the same way they are, but maybe your stinginess is somewhere else. Maybe you're stingy with sharing your vulnerability. Sometimes the shadow is always trying to hide from us. That's what it does. So then in column 3, you would say, I'm gonna do some behaviors to be more generous. So great question. We're gonna open up for questions at the end, and then you're gonna notice it. So we're gonna open it up for questions. And Lisa, we'll start with yours. So that's gonna be the Golden Shadow worksheet. And I believe if you really start to work this and do this, even if you don't understand how it works, your life will get better. Those relationships will change. This one is a game changer. All right, stop share. And that, you guys can turn your cameras back on. So Lisa, that's a great question. So what if what the other person does is that they smoke? So what is that behavior about for them? So let's just say you decided it was about them not taking care of their health, or it was about them being selfish, or it was about them numbing and avoiding. Smoking is usually a way of numbing or avoiding, or it's a way to get significance. So then what you do is what would be the opposite of that? Let's say the opposite of that is them taking care of their health. So then you would say, what can I do to take better care of myself? Where do I numb and escape? What's one numbing and escaping behavior that I can eliminate? And then what positive behavior can I fill it with? And then watch if your judgment of that turns to compassion for them. Find an area of your life where you're using some non-nourishing behavior to numb out or escape. All right, you guys. Well, I'd love to hear some of your questions, your biggest insights from tonight. What's landing for you, and what questions do you have? You want to raise your hand in the app, you can do that. Or if you just want to unmute yourself, we can get, okay, Sylvia, let's unmute Sylvia. All right, Sylvia, what's up?
Kai, sorry, can you repeat those four again? So it's like the person like who annoys you, and then what could be the positive, so you're flipping it, and then the be it and the notice it. Can you go over those two one more time?
Yes.
Sorry, it took me a while.
So the first column on the left, the far left, would be what qualities in that person annoy you or trigger you. The second column is to flip them. And this process is called clarity through contrast. So what would be the opposite? Now, I'll tell you there's an art to this. And sometimes it's easier to have someone with you there to walk you through it. Because when we're triggered by the annoying quality, it's hard for us to see like the other side of it sometimes. So like the easy one was like, maybe they're they seem selfish, or someone on this call, we could talk about entitled, right? Somebody that I love and know well had this thing where there were certain people, and they noticed this group of people that they were bothered by their sense of entitlement. See, this is a nuance. Check this out. So what would be the positive side? What would be the opposite side of entitlement? Well, you could say it would be humility. However, the gold in the shadow of entitlement was that those people stood up for themselves. Those people asked for what they wanted. Those people had no shame around being big in the world. And so sometimes even the selfishness could be that actually that selfishness is someone really taking care of themselves. So we have to look at this through a couple different lenses, but when you play with this model, it reveals itself. So you would, let's say it was selfishness, you would turn that into generosity. And then you would ask yourself, where in your life are you maybe a little bit selfish, and where could you learn to be more generous? And it may be being generous with yourself. You know, Sylvia, it could be being generous with your vulnerability so people actually get connection with you. And then if you take action on that, it's like unpulling the thread and everything unravels. Usually those relationships deepen, or at the very least the annoyance goes away, and you usually get a personal upgrade. This is like a secret way to let all the shit that annoys you fuel you. So does that make sense now, Sylvia?
Yeah, that's better. I feel like the more I just practice it with my partners, I'll to do it. So,
yeah. Okay, awesome.
Kai, is that the like you spot it, you got it theory?
It is the spot it, you got it theory. Yep. I don't know if I can pull it out of memory completely, but I once heard a really good modification to the spot it, you got it theory. So one thing was like you spot it but you feel compassion for it. It's something you've already worked through or that you're still working through. You spot it and you hate it. It's probably a disowned part of yourself. Last one, you spot it and you hate it. You may have incurred trauma from that same capacity. And so it's not actually that you have it. It's that you were traumatized by that same thing. So you're hypersensitive to it.
I like that.
Yeah. So I believe it's like those simple things, they have value, but then usually when you start to work with them, there's nuances and modifications to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. So good to be hanging out with all you guys. All right, who's gonna pop next? What do you got? I'd love to hear at least if some of you felt like you had a major insight or download based on the information tonight, like you lit up, you were like, oh shit, this is a game changer. I'd love to hear that, because there'll be a chance to share it in the app and in the Facebook group. But if there's something that's really alive for you, please also share that with us tonight. Daniel, I know it's late. Any East Coast people, if you got questions, you guys should go first. Yeah, don't, if you got something that's burning for you or you want to share, you guys go first and put the women and children to bed. And
So for me, I always speak about no shame, no blame, no guilt, and I'm calling myself out. I want to let go of all of that, and I know that I have awareness about that, and I still shudder. I still feel afraid, and so obviously I have shame and guilt if I'm shuddering and I'm scared. And I get that my intensity and my aggression and my force is because I'm scared sometimes, and I'm wanting to stand in front of her and let her know that we're okay and I'm gonna fucking take care of this shit, So I know that I've got some of this major stuff going on, because my body, like you said, it just doesn't lie, and my heart is pounding. I'm fucking scared about something. There's some energy, or I'm nervous,
mm-hmm.
So I really have I don't know. There's some shit that's going on for me, I think, with I have like all these protective things going on, but I'm very fierce and I'm compassionate with myself, and it's just a very interesting process. I'm really pleased. Yeah, thank you.
Michelle, I just want to reflect back to you. You are a really good embodiment of shame resilience, because what I witnessed from you in this group and in our one-on-one calls is that you're willing to feel your emotions, you're willing to admit when you're scared or vulnerable, and you're willing to take action through all of that. So I think, and just know that for everybody, as we go into different levels, different weeks of the program, it's highly likely that each week different people are going to pop. They're going to pop with insights and breakthroughs, and they're going to pop into breakdowns and resistance and blame. And so just, buckle up for the ride.
No shit.
That's just how it goes. And if you trust the process, if you keep going, if you keep meditating, if you keep journaling, you will emerge victorious, and we will emerge victorious together. So thank you,
I'm
Michelle.
happy. Yeah.
All right, who else? Anybody else? So you guys, I will stay on until 9 or past, and if we don't need to, we don't need to. But I just encourage you, especially if you're someone that's like, I want to get the maximum value, think of questions, because the quality of your questions will determine the quality of the transformation in the program. So, and you can go off topic a little bit too. So yes, I see you. Yes, Selena. Selena, can't hear you. You're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Okay. Can you guys hear her? No. You're not muted. You're unmuted. Selena? Oh no. So either change your headphones or type it in the chat box, or I don't know. You don't have the little mute sign on your thing, so you're not muted. I muted you and unmuted you twice, and you're definitely unmuted. So let's see what yeah, that's what Harmony's saying. Unplug your headphones and replug them. Oh, I got you.
How about now?
Yes.
Oh, hi. So I don't have to type. Okay. I was just going to say a little thing, like, a little off topic. Hi, Jill. I really enjoyed the Qigong, and I wanted to know more moves so that I could keep doing that. I know that's not like the gate we're on right now, but I was wondering if there was any way that we could get like a video to bring that in to our daily practice if we wanted to.
Yeah, so we'll just contact me privately about that, and we are in the process of finalizing the voiceover for the Qigong and the Noble Movement practices. So I don't have a date on when they're going to be finished, but literally the video editor has the edited tracks and the music, and and now they're putting that together with the voiceover. So
okay. I was thinking like if there was possibility of like less of a big production, like FaceTime, just like remember some moves. Just
we can do that in our one-on-one calls for sure.
Okay. All right. That's good. And then I had another thing in the chat box where people really wanted to integrate play. I love helping people do that. That's one of my specialties. I'm very, very playful, and I would like to help inspire anybody who wants to bring that in. So if you're feeling like you got an extra hour in your day or even 20 minutes and you want to get a little silly or remember how to play, just send me a message.
So and then I wonder, Selena, would you be willing to do a Facebook Live in our group to give us like a little bit of an idea about how we can figure that out for ourselves, and then people can reach out to you one-on-one?
Yeah, I could try that. I've just been getting comfortable doing videos, so why not? This is my safe container and chance to do that. So I will definitely do that.
And I'd be, if it would be beneficial, I'd be happy to be on there with you and ask you questions and be there. We can go back and forth if that feels more fun.
I love that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you and I will get together. We'll schedule a live time. It'll go in the Facebook group, and that live video will be in there if you want to access deeper play. Selena, up to some amazing stuff about how deep play brings us back to that 0 to 7 childlike nature, and then through that we can heal a lot of the stuff that's at work for us. So Selena, I would love to dive into that with you. So
Okay. Yay.
thank you. All right, who else? I'll just make a little announcement while you guys are thinking if you have questions. There are a couple people that are in the group now. One of them's on. His name's Steven Enton. Some of you guys know him. And there's some people that are in and they have an accountability partner. Like, for example, James. He has a power partner, but he's not in a power cell. And there's going to be some people that just are in the app and in the Facebook group, but they're not really participating because they don't have the time or the bandwidth. So just let you know, we have some like people that are just kind of hanging out now. I anticipate they're going to get so inspired that they're going to want to play at a bigger level. But at the same time, no pressure, and we're grateful that they can be here. So, okay. Other questions from the group? Jeff's on his phone. He's muted. So the Harmony will send an email out tomorrow that'll have a recap, the replay. Some of the tasks will show up in your Vimify. That'll be, you'll have a task and you'll have to journal and share it with us. Just a reminder, you probably figured out some of the Vimify shares are optional. Like, you can share and it can be private, or you can share and it can be public. So just notice that when you're sharing. And then Jeff, I think I know your question, so I'm gonna unmute you and see what we got. What's up, brother?
Well, now I'm really curious. What do you think my question is?
I think it's about whether or not you can put personalized tasks into Vimify.
I did ask that of Harmony. I would love to hear more about that. Actually, I have a slightly more derivative question, which, in looking at my success with meditation lifetime, but also this last week, it's I'm really bad. So I love the videos you have. I would love some guidance. I'm not really focusing on my breath is one of those things, like for me right now, it feels like telling someone who's just starting working out that if they can only do 10 push-ups a day, they'd be great, right? And they can't do one. So it's sort of, pushing to get that first one in to feel like I can even do the push-up is kind of where I'm at right now with meditation. I don't even know, like, we have the 5 minute, the minute intervals. If there was an interval for less than 1 minute, as in it's not clear to me that during the 5 minutes I ever paid attention to my breath,
Harmony,
that would be what I would circle most days.
That's great. Harmony, make note of that. We'll add that in. So, Jeff, are you open to having an experience right now?
Sure.
Okay, so can you sit up straight? Everyone's welcome to participate, so just sit up straight. So I'm going to invite you to touch your thumb and index finger together and place it on your knees facing down, and sit up on the edge of the chair away from the back of the chair. And if you can, feet are flat on the floor, legs aren't crossed. Yep. Take your time. Okay, you don't have to look down. I'm just gonna as long as you can hear, you'll be guided. So let your spine be straight. Feel your tailbone sink a little bit. Feel your butt on your seat. Gently pull your hands on your knees so you sit up a little taller, but drop your shoulders down. And then tuck your chin like a ½ inch so you can feel that cervical vertebrae, that cervical spine lengthen. Like you're trying to balance a plate on the top of your head, but you're relaxing your shoulders at the same time. And now let your tongue gently touch the roof of your mouth, somewhere that's comfortable. And if it's not comfortable, don't do it. And then if it feels good, let your eyes half close or 3/4 close. Just let the eyelids be heavy. And notice as you're hearing these instructions, you may have a dialogue in your mind about it. About your previous experiences, about your day today, about what you got to do after this call. Whatever it is, just notice those. Maybe you're getting information about physical sensations in your body. And now I want you to come bring your awareness to the breath. Like, take all of your focus, like your life depended on it, and put it right under your nose. I literally, as you inhale, can you feel the air as it enters the nostrils and passes through your nasal cavity? It's like a friction or a breeze. And then as you fully inhale, pause. And then as you exhale, can you feel the warmer temperature of the air exiting your nose and maybe even landing on the upper lip? And when you've exhaled it all out, pause, empty. And then begin again, inhaling. You feel the friction. You may feel the movement of the air over the philtrum of the upper lip. Maybe even you hear a gentle sound like wind passing through a sacred cave. Pause, silent, full. And then exhale. Notice the temperature difference or the feeling of the air on the upper lip. And imagine that your mind has become a laser beam, 1 inch round at the bottom of the nose. It stays there. And when your mind gets pulled away, just notice where it goes. Future thought, past thought, sensation in the body, emotion. Am I doing this right? I've tried this before. I don't know how to do this. Okay, great. Back to the nose. Inhale, exhale. Now, just for a few moments, a super brief moment, take a couple mindful breaths and keep your awareness focused right under your nose, body relaxed, breath slow and deep. Stay present. All right, now while staying meditative, everyone can participate and play. Just take a note of what percentage of that time did you stay with the breath? Were you focused on the voice and the guidance? And what percentage did your mind go on a journey? And so now we're going to bring the next level of mindfulness in, a technique that's called self-notating. So now what you're going to do is, as you inhale, you're going to say to yourself, breathing in silently, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. And you count that as 1. Still focused on the nose. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. 2. And continue like that. Talk to yourself. Inhaling, I know I'm inhaling. Exhaling, I know I'm exhaling. 3. And just for a few moments, just self-notate as you breathe and count the breaths. Wherever the mind goes, bring it back to the counting and the self-notating, as well as the focus right under the nose. Breathing in, I'm aware I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I'm only breathing out. And then slowly as you come back, just make a estimate. When you were counting and self-notating, was there an additional level of focus for you? When you occupied the mind with the words, did it help you get a level closer? And before we come out of this, Jeff, please know that it's not your level of comfort or the percentage of time that you felt like you were able to be focused on the breath, even if it's less than a minute. It's your willingness and effort to keep bringing the mind back, even though it's saying, I'm not doing this right, I can't keep it there, but you still come back, even for a millisecond. That effort is what builds the power of focus. And eventually, you will start to break through if you stick with it. So, love to hear any feedback from you, Jeff, on your experience of that one.
The notation really worked. That was very helpful. I think my brain just always looks for something to do. I find one of the hardest things for me is with my eyes closed. You know, there's always some pattern of light on your eyelids. My brain treats that like dreaming. I get random images, and that creates thoughts. And it's just like every second, it just sort of something pops in. It's a very strange sensation, I guess, but it's super distracting. And so it's, yeah. There you go. Block out all light. All right. I'll give that a shot.
First of all, why is this on my desk and why is it made of polar fleece? Because it blocks out the light and it has these little wires underneath the eye cover that I can kind of mold it. And so when I meditate, my meditation cushion's right there on the massage table. I put noise canceling headphones in and I wear this eye cover because I go deeper that way. You know, and one of the times when I was in China with our Tai Chi teacher, and you go to the zoo, and there's Chinese people, and they're talking to you, and there's little kids playing, and so I started bringing my headphones and this, and one day, you know, my Tai Chi teacher just gets, hey, what are you doing, Kai? And I said, I'm meditating. He says, yeah, but why do you need the eye cover and the headphones? And so for a while, I didn't use it, and my meditations weren't as good, and so. To make a long story short, a year later or so, I was meditating again with the headphones and this, and he comes over and he said, hey, I see you're doing that again. I said, listen, what did the ancient Taoists do? Those motherfuckers went in caves. They did everything. I'm like, this, I said, Jan Russia, this is my cave. And he was like, okay, you got me on that one, you know? So when you're starting out, Jeff, use every hack possible.
Okay.
And just trust, like you'll get there. And the self-notating, when my mind is the most agitated, I have to self-notate. I'll be like, damn, I've been meditating for 5 minutes and I don't think I've been focused on my breath once. And there's two options there. The first option is to do this. Do 5 of those, hold, swallow, I'm right back in the no mind. Or I just start going, breathing in, I know I'm breathing in, I love myself. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out, I love myself. You can also drop an affirmation at the end or the beginning of those too. And we're going to talk about that later in the program. So cool. Is that you feel good, Jeff?
Yeah, super helpful, man. Try that all this week.
Cool. Thanks. You. Yeah, please share your insights. I'm sure, raise your hand if you had a similar question or that was helpful to you. I'm just curious. Okay. Oh, you got a question, Lisa? Okay, unmuted. Yes.
It's not really a question. It's more, last time you told us the beautiful thing that the Taoists say, that it's like the air and the atmosphere we live is like a combination of fire and water.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought that into my meditation this week. And that was really, really interesting because, you know, like when you first start breathing, like if you go running or you swim or whatever, like your breathing is really strong, but you're not used to it. It's like you feel fire, right? It burns.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like trying to like feel like, oh, what if I am intaking fire or energy and it's mixing with my water and the other breath, and then it's like coming out. And so I like had all these like visions with it. So I was really in the meditations because that felt incredible. So it wasn't more than just I realize I'm breathing. It's like, what if I'm taking in energy? What if this is like nourishing fire that's connecting with the water? I was like went on this whole journey inside the meditation. So I just wanted to bring that in. That might be useful to someone else as well. To just
thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. So, you know, I just want to say, like, as you guys know, this program is somewhat malleable. And while we're going to focus, like, I think 75% on the peak performance, if you guys want more alchemy, that's what I nerd out on. That's what I'm earning. I want to earn the right to teach alchemy, but I know that most of you want peak performance. However, there are alchemical meditations that are so beautiful. And one of the basic ones is the meditation on fire and water, or the Kan and Li. So every time you breathe in and you look inside, you're bringing your mind, which is fire, consciousness, light, deeper into the water of the body, and specifically into the kidneys, if you really want to get specific with the alchemy. So you're breathing in, the fire goes down into the kidneys, and as you exhale, the kidneys are getting warmer, and they start to steam. The steam comes out, and that steam is the chi. It's the vapors, and there is correlates to this. Do you know that nitric oxide operates all throughout our body, moderating pressure? And even the sexual alchemy is about building up hormonal substrate and then using breath and pressure and abstinence to push that energy up the cerebrospinal fluid to the heart and the brain. I mean, you guys, we live in the best time. There's no need to choose between one or the other. So the more you ask questions in Facebook and the more you want of that alchemy, the more you guys can get if you want it. If it's confusing or it doesn't land for you, then don't worry. Just stick to the basics. They'll be there. So anyway, thanks, Lisa, for sharing that. Yeah.
Sure.
You'll also notice if you meditate regularly with no visualization, and then you meditate on breathing fire in to the water and then kind of bonding, you can get really hot really quick. And I know that that's part of what Wim Hof is doing when he's in ice to his neck, he can't move and breathe. He has to use his mind to turn it on. And there's a lot of visualization of fire and water happening and just that kind of internal combustion. Okay. Guys get me all fired up on the alchemy, Lisa. We'll get in trouble here. Be like 10 o'clock. I'll still be talking about it. All right. What any other questions? Any other support you guys need? Anybody want to come off mute and just get some support?
I will. Nobody's gonna. I'm just curious because the vulnerability thing keeps coming up for me, and then you kind of called it out on me on this, and I just think like that's actually really interesting. I love what Jeff said about like the little bits at a time, like in terms of like what does it look like as a 30-second experience. And I'm just like, with vulnerability, like in my mind, I feel like I've been being more and more of that in my life with like bigger stuff and making bigger, huge like leaps compared to who I was even a year ago. But like, what's it like? I feel like it builds up, and then the vulnerability explodes, right? And so what's like daily practice of vulnerability that I could take on every single day to lean into that more, to kind of like flex that muscle of vulnerability?
Well, I think if you ever catch yourself wanting to ask for a question or ask for support, and for whatever reason you edit or modify or limit, I think you might be able to find one thing a day where you do that. Now, Sylvia, I don't know if it's true for you. I don't know your situation, but like I know with some of the men I've worked with, one of the ways that they're vulnerable is like if they're in Starbucks and they see a really beautiful woman, to like go up and say, "Excuse me, you are so beautiful. I just wanted to share that with you," with no attachment to it. And everybody has a version of that uncomfortable thing that they don't like to say to people. Sometimes it may be to tell someone in your life that's annoying you to set a boundary. So I don't know. Can you think of some micro authentic expressions that you could make to people?
Yeah, I guess I'm even thinking just like in with clients, like maybe I'll go over with time and I won't actually hold my boundary with like the time. And I'm just like, because I'm wanting to give more value, I have some time, but I guess sometimes I notice I'll give myself away a little bit more than I want to.
Yep.
In terms of time and energy and attention, and like I genuinely from my heart want to serve, and there's sometimes that line I'll just blur.
Well, my suggestion is start there, and my experience of it is that if I hold structure a little tighter, I can get get more value from my client in less time and honor my own time. And I literally, if I know I'm going to honor my time, I won't let my client deviate if it's not a valuable, context. So I think one great way would be to say, look, all your calls are going to be whatever time they're assigned to be. And you're going to,
Shannon, I hung up. Forget it.
Okay. See, there's some shadow work happening right there. And then hold yourself accountable to make sure you hold the structure like more skillfully so that you don't need that extra time. Would you be willing to take that on?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So
yeah. And I'm noticing, like, I can feel that I'm like, oh, there's something else or something deeper, and I can't put my finger on it just yet. So I'm thinking that's something I want to dive in one of the like calls with our partners and stuff. Cause I can feel, I'm like, okay, that still feels kind of surfacey in terms of vulnerability. But I guess, yeah, that's a good place to start for sure. But there is something, yeah. And I can just feel it. I just can't see it yet with my head.
So how about, I'll just ask one question. Then if anyone's getting an intuitive hit, if you're staying present right now and deep listening and you get an intuition you're welcome to chime in if she's open to hearing it. I would ask two questions. So one is, where else in your life are you prostituting your time out? Where are you giving more and more of yourself so that you feel like oh, now I'm enough. I gave more than I needed to. Like, just look at that pattern of wanting to give to be worthy. Because that's a shadow for almost everyone that I know. It's like feeling like your worthiness depends on the value you add to somebody else or, any of that. So the little go ahead.
No, I guess there's this place where I sort of struggle, like, with like the value I want to add to the world, the value I want to add to clients or just with my work in the world. But then I'm like, why am I going to define value with like, the dollar sign? Like, how do I define value from like more in terms of like how much I've given, like to how many people I've given, as opposed to, there's something there, and I honestly, I can't articulate it in this moment, but I can feel it. So I'm gonna sit with that in meditation for sure. I can feel it right there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's good.
So I would observe that you're really close, because when you look at the shadow, it gets all squirmy.
I know. I can feel it. Like, yeah, I totally can feel that too. And I just and I'm also managing like the time too. So I'm just like. Yeah, I'm being conscious of that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to take too much of our time, right? You'd rather give time than take it. See, it's at play. It's at play everywhere. So thanks for outing yourself.
Yeah.
James, feedback?
Just personal experience. I would say it can be vulnerable for givers to own the value to receive. Like, that can actually be, like, I know for me, I was thinking like, oh, vulnerability is like emotional vulnerability, showing my weaknesses, being seen in like the parts of me that I don't think are worthy to be seen. And for myself in certain areas, it's actually being seen in my gifts, in my value, in my power, in all that's more vulnerable. So just a potential like reframe on the context of vulnerability, like it may be showing up and saying, this is the time we have. I know it's going to be really powerful, and holding to that, or opening a little bit of vulnerability and saying it's a stretch for me to hold to my time frames, and I'm leaning into really owning my value. And I know this is going to be more powerful when we do that together, and just a little opening, and then they can help hold you in that. And that's that vulnerability and owning your value. That's something I'm working on myself as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Jim.
And the beauty too is that when you're able to do that, you teach your clients something as well. You demonstrate something to them as well, in that way. You give them permission to own their value and to hold their time sacred, and to, you know what I mean? And then the day arises where you've been doing that for like a month, and you've been like this super strict about your time. And then one day you have this session with somebody, you're like, no, this person needs 10 more minutes, and I'm going to give it because that's authentic. I'm not doing it for my self-worth. I'm doing it because it's in the moment. But you kind of have to have an artificial structure for a little while, and then you can violate it later authentically.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, thank you. That's a good place for me to start. Yeah.
And also to set the expectations, you know, like with Vimify, we have their expectations that have been set. And, you know, I think that when we do that, we're more eager to meet them, you know, and I know I am. And then people know what to expect, you know, as well.
Right.
Especially with clients, you know. You can set the expectation and let them know this is what we're doing, and then you could go over that as well.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Michelle. All right, I have a logistical announcement. If anyone has more, you know, we'll stay on. Harmony wants me to remind you guys, based on questions you received, make sure that you're all mainly doing Apply the Pathway of Power in 12 weeks, the simpler one. That's where the score is going to be kept. And we said that on the first call, but just a reminder to, even if you're using the secondary one that has the morning and evening ritual, make sure your primary is the basic one. And your the other one is like a gift or a bonus, basically. And we won't be giving out awards based on that one, because the likelihood of the overachievers in the group all jumping in the complete system and then getting overwhelmed and then failing out, like, that's what we want to avoid. So we're trying to walk the line here for the different personality types. So, all right. Anything else? Do you guys need any support around, if you can use this time to connect with your groups, or you can connect offline? You have a model in here for what to do on your first Power Partner call, is practice deep listening. You know, James, at some point, if you want to do a 5 or 10 minute Facebook Live with me to talk about how to listen from your body, I know that would be super valuable to the group, and no obligation, but opportunity if you want it. And we'd probably appreciate it.
I'm fully in, man. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. James, do you want to say something about how to, like, just like a short snippet on like best practices for deep listening?
Meditate. For me, it's really getting in my body, which is what you talk about in the meditation, like really coming back to the feeling of the weight of my body in the chair and really being present. And then there's getting to know how we're wired, meaning, can I both empathize and feel what this person's feeling, like you talked about in the talk, and also feel myself at the same time, so that I'm not completely losing myself to the feeling of them, but I can feel and mirror and hold what they're experiencing and also hold myself at the same time. So we can talk about some really simple exercises and maybe play out a couple little things that would be helpful, but that's the crux of it, I think.
Thank you, James. Thank you. So two things, you know, when we went to the lunch with Johnny Blackburn, one of the things I asked him personally was, how does he work with so many people's trauma and pain and still keep a clear energy system? And he said that from his Qigong practice, he always has some awareness in the earth, in his feet and in the earth. So anything that comes from that person, it's like Johnny's not susceptible to those you know, emotional toxins or electromagnetic, you know, scattered frequencies, because he's always got a root in the earth. And I think on a simpler level, it's about him always feeling his body. And so his body is not going to take on secret trauma because he can feel it and release it in the moment. And that's also why I practice Tai Chi, because that's the like physical art of moving, but not taking on force. And so if you can do it physically and energetically, then you can do it in the emotional world. And then the other, I'm just curious, how many of you have some health or healing goals that you're working on while you're in this program? Just curious, how many people? Okay, so there's a really powerful segment of Eckhart Tolle's book, his first book, The Power of Now. And he talks about this practice of closing your eyes and just bringing your mind and letting your mind scan throughout your body. And so I just want to share that in the Taoist tradition, the brain is the father and the heart is the mother, and the organs and the cells are the children. And what the Taoist parable is that for most of us, the father's out thinking, doing, ambitions, the mother's out dealing with emotions, and the children start to misbehave in the body. They start to get naughty, they make a mess, shit's in the wrong cabinets, and then what happens when you get a physical or you get sick, mom and dad come rushing home and are like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing in there? But the kids don't listen because you haven't been home. And so when we come home again every day and we just sit with ourselves with no judgment, not asking for anything, the body's intelligence starts to wake up. And some diseases that didn't move from a drug or even an herb, they can shift their course as you build up returning mom and dad lovingly into the body. I don't know, when I heard that metaphor from my teacher, I loved it. I loved it. So he said, come home to yourself, and then the children will listen. So added motivation of why when you're meditating, that you don't have to do anything to heal, just give the innate intelligence back to the body so it can recapacitate your immune system. It can start to heal the organs. We could look at it 100 different ways, but Jill, you remember that story? All right. Any closing comments? So I'd like to hear at least can I get one person to share your biggest insight from tonight, your biggest takeaway? What landed? And what action step? Because Jeff, like I was saying, for example, Sylvia, in your morning most important tasks, you could put monitor time with clients, limit all calls to 1 hour. And then when you're in the evening one, in the plus delta or whatever, or in the evening meditation, you can note, did your calls go over an hour today? And if you're journaling that in the app, you basically have your own system. You can even hide it from the public about what you're tracking. And if that's not the way it's set up exactly right now, it'll start on Sunday. We're gonna make sure that option is in there at least a couple days a week. And your guys, Vimify is somewhat modifiable. So as you guys have requests, like Jeff, that was a great request. So we're gonna do our best to integrate it without overwhelming the app, so you don't have like 27 things to check off every day. All right. Any other questions? I think we're good then. All right, everybody. Thank you for showing up. And hi, Gina, you little silent hiding in the closet at the relative's house. And everyone else that I didn't say hello to. Julia, thank you. Selena, so glad you're here. Harmony, I know you're taking mad notes on anything that we need to cover. Good night, everyone. We'll send out the recap, the replay tomorrow. Thank you so much.